here. It'll come up here. All right. So here we have the good old SOIS. All right. And you can see there are a number of different questions here. How many does this one have? So it's like 13 questions on this page anyway, and then it goes on. All right, and then we've got some different types of items. All right. So as you can see, these are structured items on the SOIS. You're rating the quality of the class and the quality of the instructor. And so, is this a Likert scale, a true Likert scale? What do you think? Yeah, so this one's interesting because it has 7 points, ranging from strongly agree to strongly disagree. And so you would think that 4 would be neither agree nor disagree. And then there's this other column that's labeled NA, or not applicable, or no opinion. So I would think that this is a true Likert scale because of the fact that it does have a midpoint which would translate into strongly agree or strongly disagree. It's just that they have this extra option, which is kind of like a what we'll talk about in just a second as a don't know option, where there might be something that the instructor does, that instructors can do, that just isn't particularly relevant to a certain type of class. So let's say the textbooks used have been appropriate to the course. Some instructors don't use textbooks. They'll just have a series of papers that they'll have you read. And so in that case, if you didn't have that not applicable or no opinion option, then students would be really confused as to what to put there. And they would give you an answer, but the answer wouldn't really be meaningful because the instructor didn't use a textbook. Right? Did you have a question a minute ago? Were you going to say something? Okay, I thought I saw a hand up. Somebody else? Okay, I'm hallucinating apparently.
Yeah, it's getting really early here
Yeah, I'm fading. All right, so anyway, all of these are on a Likert scale. And there are just different aspects of the course that are rated. And you can see they changed the scale down here. This is another thing that you have to be careful about with these surveys when you're designing the items and the way that they're laid out. Is it's not a good idea to change the meanings of the points up very often, because that will confuse your participants. It's also good to be consistent, so if this end of the scale means high and this end means low, you want to keep that consistent throughout the scale, even if you're changing the type of question that they're answering. And so they're looking at, has the course been easy or very difficult, amount of work, demanding, not very demanding versus very demanding, overall assessment of instructor.
But isn't that like, I don't know, I guess the like very easy is, and the not demanding are negative points, so that's why he has like strongly disagrees on the same side.
Yeah, quite possibly. I mean, I didn't design this one, but that would make sense that lower ratings are not necessarily going to be good. I mean, obviously students might like a course that's very easy, but that's not necessarily going to be the best course. That's why when they're when the administration is assessing how good a job the faculty are doing, they don't just look at these ratings. They'll look at grade distributions and other outcomes. Now, you can see we also have another type of item here, and so these are more structured items, but they don't use a Likert or Likert type scale. We're just getting specific numbers of hours that people have spent working on the course outside of class. And then this is going to be some demographic kind of information. What's your current class level? We'll talk about demographics in a little bit. Why did you take this course? What grade do you expect to get? So again, all structured items. And then at the end of the thing, we can see that there are some open-ended items too. So it's really useful sometimes to know what students felt the strengths of the course were. And you can get some much more detailed information from these than you do from just the averages of which bubbles people filled in. Right? What would you change to improve the course? That's something that, again, an open-ended question is just perfectly suited for. And then there's this catch-all of additional comments. So this can be really useful, especially if you're doing a pilot study, because there might be some problem with the wording on a question or a typo that you didn't even know was in there, and people will point that type of thing out to you. Or if there's just some comment that they had that didn't fit into any of these others, they can feel free to type it in there. Now, I thought it would also be fun to take a look at the results from one of my SOIS surveys from last semester. So this is, oops, thought I had it. Oh, there we go. So this is from a class that a few of you were enrolled in, Psychology of Personality. And so you can see I get the quantitative data right here. So I had 35 of, I think, 42 students fill that out. That's a pretty good return rate. And then I can see the means, medians, and standard deviations for all of these ratings. I got pretty good ratings. I'm pleased with these. Now, apparently I didn't challenge the students in that course a whole lot because they rated the course content as 4.79, which is right around in the midpoint on the difficulty rating. And
Isn't that a good thing though?
well, it depends. I mean, just because a course is easy, like I said, doesn't mean it's...
I mean, like, it's a midpoint, so it's not too easy or too hard, right?
Yeah, I guess so. It could be seen as a happy medium. Yeah. I'm curious to see how you guys will rate this course. I know this is one of the more challenging psychology courses. I shouldn't tell you that. I might be biasing your responses. All right. And then hours spent. So it looks like most people spent not all that much time per week, between 0 and 4 hours. A few people spending some more time than that. All right. And then you can see the distribution of the students. A lot of juniors and seniors, a couple sophomores. But let's go ahead and take a look at the open-ended questions, because this is where it gets really interesting. I usually pay more attention to these than I do the averages on all the closed or structured questions. Right, so strengths and weaknesses. This one's kind of a negative comment right here. Says he was a really boring professor. The days when the computer didn't work, he couldn't lecture without his PowerPoints. He reads directly off the PowerPoints. His exams were extremely wordy. It would help if he posted his PowerPoints so we wouldn't have to write in super speed during the lecture. Now, part of this is just blatantly false, I'll say, because I continue to lecture even if we're having a computer malfunction. It's just students don't like it because they don't know what to write down, and I send a copy of the slides, but anyway. And then there are, yeah, so there's lots of useful information in here. There's somebody who called me Mr. Baker instead of Dr. Baker. That gets on our nerves, but no big deal. So anyway, I can look through these and look for specific things I might want to improve the next time I teach that course, which will be this coming summer. So I'm probably going to be looking over this when I'm revising my materials. Right?
There's a part about this, talking about, somebody said if people knew, or if the teachers knew who actually wrote those grades would decrease dramatically.
Yeah, well that's why they keep these things confidential. I mean, there's no identifier that tells me who wrote these comments. I mean, sometimes we can kind of guess if there's a student that was doing really poorly and they've been, causing a lot of trouble throughout the class. But still, we don't get these until after the grades for the semester have already been posted. Like, I won't get this semester's until sometime in the summer when the grades are already said and done. So you don't have to worry that I'm going to somehow match up your name with your answers and give you a harsher grade based on that. So, but yeah. So anyway, this is a good example of the type of data that you could get using the open-ended questions. And again, this is qualitative data. It's not really giving direct information about how much I do certain things. Some people might allude to that and say there should be more videos, or it says I help a lot with material, so that's kind of quantity of helping, but it's vague. But that can be really useful. All right. Well, anyway, now that we've had our fun with that, let's go back to. So I could read off the PowerPoints. I try not to do that too much. I mostly use them as reminders of what we're supposed to talk about next. All
So
right.
is that point with PowerPoint? I mean, it's structured.
Yeah, I like a good structured class. Sometimes a discussion can be fun too, but structure has its benefits. Well, so one type of question that you see on a lot of surveys, particularly in fields like political psychology, is the most important problem question. So you're asking people, what is the most important problem facing our nation? Or what is the most important problem facing the university, if we were just looking at students' opinions of how things are running here at ECU. And this can be done in either an open-ended or a closed fashion. So you can just present people with the open-ended question, what's the most important problem, and see what they say, and then kind of tally up their responses, because a lot of people are going to give similar answers. Or you can give them a list of options, say, of these 10 problems facing the nation or facing the university, which do you think is the most important? Right? And so, what type of data do you think that's going to be? What scale of measurement do you think? This might be kind of tough. What's that?
What do you quantity? Because you do like a percent of a grade things.
Well,
like ranking it.
So I wasn't really looking for quantitative versus qualitative, but this could be done, I mean, if you're doing it open-ended, it's kind of qualitative, but you can quantify something that is qualitative data. In fact, that's what a lot of qualitative researchers will do when they go through and actually do some statistical tests, is they have to quantify the responses in some way. But I was thinking more along the lines of nominal ordinal interval ratio. Okay, so it's kind of tempting to say nominal, and with an open-ended item, it might be nominal, but with a closed-ended one, or sorry, not closed-ended, but a closed or structured question where you give people a list of options, I think that would be more accurate to say that that's ordinal, because they're comparing all these options and then picking the most important. So remember, that's the important characteristic of that ordinal level data, is that people are comparing among options and rating them or ranking them in comparison to one another. All right, so like I said, this is done a lot in political psychology. So, and the common example of this that you see all the time is, what do you think is the most important problem facing this country today? And there are some interesting shifts in the answers to this question over time. One that I like to use in my intro to psychology class looks at how many people reported terrorism as the most important problem in this country and how that's changed over the years. So if you look at early September 2001, before the 9/11 attacks, like less than 1% of people said that terrorism is the most important problem. And then, of course, right after that, it skyrocketed. It was like 40%, I think, said that it's the most important problem.
Only 40%?
Yeah, it's kind of surprising it wasn't more than that. But as the years passed and people's memories of that event faded a little bit, fewer and fewer people reported that as the most important problem. And that was even before the economic collapse that most people today would say the economy is the most important problem. Now, I thought it would be interesting to go ahead and take a look at Gallup's website so that you can get an idea of this one.
Get the